Welcome, everyone, to the Super Connector, where we talk about all things related to the world of influence. Everything from sales to leadership, personal branding, networking, and my personal favorite, how to win friends and influence people. Today, we have a special guest, Andres Contreras. Andres is a 17-year-old high-ticket closer that's making over $100,000 per month. Yes, I said $100,000 per month. He started closing when he was 16 years old at Jeremy Miner's company, 7th Level, selling coaching packages. He was the top closer, collecting more money than the entire team combined, working 18-hour days, 7 days a week. We'll get into that. Now he runs a consulting business, scaling over 140 companies, and he trains entire elite teams of sales professionals, managers, and business owners. Welcome, Andre. How you doing?
Thank you. Doing great. Good to be here, brother.
Yeah, I hope you like that introduction, man. There was a lot of
Flattered.
stuff in there.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's get right into it, man. We had a short discussion already, and I'll tell you what, you inspired me a lot. At your age, the amount of responsibility and accountability that you have for yourself really inspired me. I'm 40 years old, but I'm very inspired by you. I'll tell you that much. And I have no excuses not to be successful anymore. So from this day forward, I'm going to be a millionaire. I can guarantee
There
you
we go.
that.
Yeah.
All
That's
right, so
great.
let's just get started. I really want to know, can you just walk us through your journey in sales? Like what initially attracted you to high ticket sales?
Yeah. So at the very, very beginning, depends how far back you want to go, but I was a high school kid, very, very normal. And I started realizing like I wanted to do more with myself. Like I always felt like I didn't really fit in. I was a bit of like a misfit in a sense. And I knew I wanted to like be better and I wanted to compete and I wanted to win, but I just didn't know at what. And so eventually I found business and like I grew my first business to 36K a month revenue, et cetera. And then from that point, I was like, it failed. It crashed, just to be completely honest, because like I was managing this massive team. My service delivery required me to have like 30 people on my team just to do those small revenue numbers. And so after it crashed, then it was like, what can I take away from this experience? And what I took away was like, business is just solving problems. In order to solve a problem, you solve it with a skill set. So I
Yeah,
realized rather than trying to solve 10 different problems at the exact same time, trying to learn 10 different skill sets and mastering none of them, I should just focus in on what was my specialty, what was my main point. And for me, that was sales. And so after I decided to do that, that's when I got into the high ticket sales space, selling for different offers, going to 7th Level with Jeremy Miner, and then eventually starting this consulting business off the backbone of my sales skills.
awesome. And I'm sure that you've heard the saying, "A jack of all trades is a master of
Yeah,
none."
exactly.
And so
Exactly.
at that point, you realize that as you improve your skill set, everything will fall in place. What drives you though? Like what drives you? What gives you this ambition and this motivation to possibly work 18 hours a day, 7 days a week?
See, that's a tough question. At the beginning, my motivation was like, and it'll sound bad, but in reality, I think it was the best thing that ever happened to me. I think my motivation was feeling inferior to everybody else. And so wanting to figure out a way to be superior and to win
Yeah.
and to be the best at something. And so that became business for me. How can I win? How can I destroy everybody? How can I see all these other high school kids that are my exact same age, but be making more money than them, able to travel more, able to be around better people, provide for my family better, and everything else? And that's how I initially got into business. Now, eventually, and this is a big mistake a lot of people make, that wears off. That does not last forever. Once you get to 20, 30 grand a month and everybody else is still a high school kid going to math class, like that doesn't really push you anymore. And so I had to
Right.
figure out like what was my next level. And for me, it became standards. I think standards are what lack a ton in society. People they'll be motivated. They'll wake up. Oh, I feel good today. I'm going to work. I'm going to do this. What about the day you don't feel good? What are you going to do on that day?
Yeah.
And if you have a standard, it doesn't matter how you feel. You get done what has to get done. If you rely on your motivation and your drive, it wears off, just like it did for me at the beginning. I wanted to be better. I wanted to make more money. Made my first 30 grand a month when I was 16. Well, that motivation's gone. Now I need something new. And that became a standard for me. So I think like there are days when I will wake up more motivated and I will be more driven. Like these last 2 days, I've been working on a launch and like I've slept 2 hours, 3 hours the past 2 days. That
Hmm.
came a lot out of motivation of me like feeling like I want to get this done. I want to go through it and being excited for it because like it fulfills my mission and my purpose. But I think fundamentally tomorrow when I wake up, if I get another 2 hours of sleep, I might not be as motivated because the launch already happened, but it doesn't matter because I have a
Yeah.
standard. It has to get done. I think that's the biggest difference. And like, that's what lacks in society. That's why so many people are lazy. They don't work hard. They never become successful. They lack a standard.
Yeah. And you can choose what your own standards will be.
A
No one else
thousand percent.
needs no one else needs to set them for you. And I think a lot of people don't really think about that. I think about that often and I try to raise the standards for myself. I do have high standards and people tell me often, Stephen, you're too hard on yourself. Settle down. But I'm not being hard on myself. I'm holding myself accountable for what I believe that I can achieve. Do you
Exactly.
feel as if that's the thought process that you go through as well?
Of like people telling me like, oh, you can calm down.
Oh,
It's me still pushing, or what
not
aspect?
people telling you, you deciding for yourself what you're going to do and how you're going to live your life.
Yeah. So I think Tony Robbins has a really good like principle that he talks about, and it's like I think he calls it the primary question. Your primary question is the question you ask yourself that drives you. And that drive can turn to something really, really negative if there is
Mm-hmm.
none of it, or it can turn to something very, very positive. So, for example, people will have a primary question. Like a lot of people who think they're depressed or really sad, their primary question will be like, oh, why am I so sad? Why do I keep fucking everything up? Why do I keep messing up? If that's the primary question you set for yourself, by default, you're assuming the fact that you always mess up, that you're always sad, that life doesn't get better. So, of course, you're going to be sad. Your whole
Yeah.
life is surrounded by the fact that you are sad. But if your primary question is something like, what am I truly capable of? Like, what can I really achieve? Then I think that becomes a superpower for you. And I think that's been mine for the longest time. What am I truly capable of? And the reason that pushes me so hard is because Tony Robbins talks about the flip of the primary question, which is what makes it primary, is that without it, you feel like your life has no meaning. For me, if I don't achieve my true potential and I don't achieve everything I can achieve, what was the point of me even trying? Why was I even on the earth in the first place? Like my life literally has no meaning. Like it would be more worth it to just die than not achieve what I could truly achieve and change the lives I could change. And I genuinely mean that. Like there's questions and everybody has it. Most people aren't conscious of it. Where if you
Mm-hmm.
really think about that question, the flip, the alternative is life not having a meaning. And if that's your question and it's a positive pusher, you will achieve so much more than you could ever dream of.
And we spoke briefly about this the last time we talked. And
Yeah.
you can hit a $30,000 month, but that euphoria is going to wear off.
Fast.
And you have, yeah, and you have to, especially once you hit 50K after that, it's going to wear off even faster.
Exactly.
So what gives you meaning and purpose?
I think that's a good question. I don't really think about it myself so much. I think about like, what is my mission on this earth? I think like a really, really good one is like, I want to have kids that end up being great, having the same mindset, and whatever they decide to do in life, they don't have to go into sales or business. They could be a friggin' ballerina if they want to be. Maybe not that, but they could be like a chess player, whatever they want to do. But they
Yeah.
have to be the best at it. That's what I want from them. I want them to have the mindset of pushing and to be the best at whatever they choose to do. And so for me, it's like a lot of it comes down to like creating a kingdom of my children who can grow up to be great and be happy and be fulfilled and also be the best. And I think in order for me to put that onto my kids and onto their mindset, I have to have it myself. So every moment, whenever I'm pushing and I'm doing new things and I'm trying new things and I'm failing or I'm succeeding, like I think about it from the perspective of like, what am I going to take out of this that will change the lives of the people around me now and in the future? For example, one of my missions for this launch that I'm doing right now, it's a launch where I'm not even going to make money on it. It's a free launch.
Yeah.
And the entire purpose of it is because my mission right now is making sales education available to the youth completely for free.
Yeah.
And so through that launch, I'm not making any money, but it drives me, it fulfills me because how are the actions I'm taking, the mindset I'm taking going to affect the people around me? And that's how it's going to affect it. I almost, in a weird way, like I almost think of, I don't think of it necessarily as like kid and father, but I think about it from like mentee mentor.
Yeah.
As a kid and a father, that's a mentee mentor relationship. You're learning their belief systems, how they act, what they take away from the world. And I think to some degree, me being able to do a launch like this for other kids that are 15, 16, 18, 20 years old, that also feel lost and they want to drive. That almost, in a way, reminds me of that like kid, father, mentee, mentor relationship in a sense, where it feels like me being able to fulfill that purpose, even if they're obviously not my blood children. And there's going to be
Yeah.
some 30 and 40-year-olds in there. That's how I think of it in my mind.
Yeah. Interesting. So, seventh level, what was it like working there?
There was mixed. There's good and bad, obviously, as in anything. I very quickly came in, and honestly, like, people always have an image of like, oh, in order to be the best, like you have to work 18 hours a day, you have to work 20 hours a day, you have to be 100% committed. But even if you look at like documentaries like The Last Dance and stuff, which is like over a decade or 2 decades of like NBA teams, if you look at a lot of the top NBA players or like professional sports players, it's not like they're playing 16 hours a day or in recovery 16 hours a day like you imagine them to be.
Yeah.
Very often they're playing 3-4 hours a day, maybe a couple hours of game film, and then they just watch movies, hang out with the family, etc. Like you have this imaginary image of what it really takes, and most of the time that's not even what it really takes. But I believe if you embody that actual image, you will be the best. So even though that's the biggest B2C sales training company in the world, led by the founder who was one of the highest earning salespeople of all time, I went in, and as a 16 and 17-year-old, I was collecting more than the rest of the team combined. I was outworking everybody. I was outlearning everybody. I was learning revenue strategies, marketing, branding, recruiting, managing, leadership, stuff just outside of sales. And that enabled me to do so much more. I could build a team. I could put together revenue strategies that then we could launch like text blasts and email blasts to like all the clients. And I could run those strategies because I knew how to do it better than anybody. So like what it really was for me, in a sense, it gave me the confidence in myself of like, yeah, I've made 36 grand a month with my business. I've sold in 2 other smaller high ticket offers and destroyed everybody on them. But like this was that final step of like, I'm competing against the best of the best and I'm still winning and I'm still destroying. But it's not just because of me. It's because of my work ethic, my loyalty, and my intelligence. And so it really gave me the confidence in myself of like, if I put my mind to something, I can truly do it. And that's how with the consulting business that we started, I started it 40 days ago and we've already done over 100 grand profit in my pocket. It's because I had that confidence and like, I can do it. So I was able to quit everything. I was able to go to Europe completely alone, away from my family, away from everything else, and just figure it out because I knew I would, and I did. So I think it gave me the confidence. And I think if you don't believe in yourself, nobody's going to believe in you. I guarantee you that. So if you don't believe in yourself and making it work, you will not be successful no matter what. That's like a cardinal rule. Whether you're making $0 a month, 5K a month, 20K a month, 50K a month, if you don't believe you can go from 0 to 10 or 20 to 50 or 50 to 100, it will not happen if you don't have that self-confidence. So it gave me the confidence in like, I can build an 8-figure company. I can do massive things. And then being able to execute on it from the backbone of that. That's really what it gave me.
And so many people seek out that external validation and don't look within themselves enough. And I'm wondering, how did you develop so much introspection? Were you journaling, or are these just thoughts that come on a daily basis, or was there some type of material?
The language of success is pain. Like so many people, and I see this online, they talk about like this fairy tale feeling of like, oh, I'm going to be fulfilled and it's going to be beautiful. I'm going to be like on a cloud. That's how they like to envision it. That's not reality. I give this example all the time. If you're in Navy SEAL training, going through Hell Week, and you're in the surfs and everything's shit, your body's breaking down, your bones are broken, you're not thinking about this fairy tale image of like, oh, it's going to be so beautiful. I'm going to hug my family after this. You're thinking about the fucking pain.
Oh, yeah.
That's the truth. It's the exact same thing. Like the only way to truly analyze who you are and yourself is under pressure. In those moments, if you're in Navy SEAL training, and I used to be obsessed with them and like the special forces and all that, because one of my mentors was a special forces sniper. So he talks about it a lot, etc. Yeah. So it's super cool. And what I realized is like in those moments when you're going through that, that's when you truly find out who you are. How do you think? How can you push past this pain? What are you really made of? And if you never go through that pain, you're never going to find that out. That's why most people never succeed, because they never even know what they're capable of in the first place. They don't even know what they can achieve. So for me, I had to literally put myself through that pain intentionally, because I realized I didn't know who I was. I grew up in a middle-class family. I had good parents, loving parents, sports, middle-class income, like comfortable. I never went through any pain. The fear of like, what am I going to eat tomorrow? Where am I going to sleep tomorrow? That's the shit that builds you when you have that independence, that maturity. And so I had to create that for myself. I ran away from home when I was 16. I dropped
Yeah.
out, all of it. That was not because I'm a terrible son, although some people would argue that. It was because I needed to know what I was truly capable of. And I couldn't know that in the comfort of this bed under my parents' roof. I just couldn't. I had to run away. I had to work the 18 hours a day, being completely lonely for months on end, 7 days a week. I had to do that stuff. Me putting myself in the furnace, that's when I found out who I truly was. I had to write on a journal. I wrote down all my beliefs. I had to figure out who I truly am, and I wrote it down. Under this situation, I did this. Under this situation, I did this. This is what I believe. This is my value. These are my morals. And off the back end of that, then I had to rearrange it. What are my beliefs? What are my values? What are my rules that are preventing me from being able to be successful? How can I change them to create more success, to help more people, to impact more people? So I think fundamentally, like, it goes back to the same thing. The language of success is pain. You have to break down who you truly are and then build it right back up. And that's what I had to do.
Can you tell me a little bit about your mentors? Because I don't know, but I think you mentioned Matt Ryder
Yeah.
or
He's
Jeremy
special forces
Miner.
sniper.
Yeah, can you tell me a bit about that relationship, that coaching relationship that you had and how it improved your performance?
Yeah. So funny enough, with Jeremy, he wasn't, I don't really consider him a mentor because not a lot of people know this. Whenever like he coached me or like some other people that I was around, my conversion rates would actually go down. And it's not because he's bad at sales. He's a phenomenal salesperson. I believe the best in the world. But it's
Mhm.
because he's so good that he struggles to like simplify the concepts, like dumb them down.
Yeah.
And so like we would review a call, and in the first 10 seconds, he already paused it 9 times and gave me 10 different pieces of feedback. And it's like, okay, what the hell is going on? And so like that was kind of an issue with that. So the biggest mentors that I took the most away from, number one was my current business partner, Yash. By far, he had the biggest impact on my life. He
Yeah.
was making 120 grand a month in commissions when he was 18 years old. And so like
Wow.
he was crushing it. Became the VP of revenue of 7th level at 19 years old. And so like he was running everything. He was like a mini CEO. So I learned the most from him. Matt Ryder as well, indirectly, seeing his trainings, like on calls with him, etc. Learned a ton from him, his mentality, his mindset. Back in the early days through business, I had other mentors, but that was more specific to like agencies and stuff like that. None of them were like very impactful after this point. They were very impactful at the beginning, obviously, but most of them are still doing 100, 150K a month, like no like big increments. Eddie Malouf is another one. I got one-on-one coaching from Eddie. He runs a marketing company that does about $1 billion a year for his clients in revenue, or like 1.2, something like that. So he was massive in me learning marketing strategy, all that stuff. Another one, Austin Crispo. He was specifically a mentor specifically for marketing content, organic. He's built up some of the major brands. I can't say them because of NDA. But like he built up Jeremy, for example. I can say that one. But like he built up a lot of the 9-figure businesses and people that you see online that like you don't know who's behind them. He's behind most of them.
Yeah.
So like those are a lot of like my major mentors that kind of played a lot of roles into my success. And honestly, not just learning, but like just becoming a man, learning my own
Yeah.
values, who I truly am, my mindset. Like a lot of it came from them.
You talked a little bit about running away from home.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's a story. I mean, can you tell me a little bit about that experience when you ran away from home to achieve success?
Yeah. It was realizing again, like pain is the language of success. You have to know who you truly are in order to be able to succeed, and you need to build that version of you up. I realized like if I never went through anything hard in my life, I would never build the mental toughness it would take to achieve the success I want to have. I just couldn't.
Yeah.
So I had to run away. Like I didn't have a choice in my mind. It was literally like in my mind, it wasn't a hard decision. It was not like, oh, what are my parents going to think? Are they going to be sad? Like I didn't think about any of that stuff. It was like, this is the only way. I have to do this. No other option. Get it done. I bought a one-way ticket to Arizona, one way. I told my parents I was going to be back in like 3 or 4 days, and I was going for a business trip, and I didn't see them for like 4 months after that. I already had 2 leases and a dog by the time I saw them again. So like that's basically how it went.
So what was it like when you started closing? Didn't you have any type of nervousness or anxiety, or were you just a natural?
I had the nerves, I had the anxiety. I had to realize Matt Ryder has a great quote, and it's sales is a process driven activity and it requires hard work and long hours, but it's not diffusing bombs or shooting terrorists. That quote
Yep.
is ingrained in my mind.
Yeah.
And I think it's a beautiful quote because so many people, they get in their head, they get on a call and it's like, oh, what do I say here? Like, oh, I have call reluctance here. Who gives a shit? If you have a good sales process, it's a formula. You follow it step by step by step by step. It's a formula. It does not matter how you feel. Matt Ryder has this other quote. You could wake him up at 2 a.m., stick a sales call in front of him, and you'd have no issues because he doesn't have to think. He can basically turn off his brain and just follow the process. Same thing with me. So I think at the beginning, I had the nerves and everything else. That's natural. Everybody will.
Yeah.
But I had to learn what is the formula I'm going to follow. I'd have a great formula. I had to outwork everybody else. And naturally, doing both of those things is what built that confidence in myself of like, I will win. And then I did win. And then when I win, it built more confidence. And I did the same thing. It's a cycle. It's ongoing.
Do you think it's mostly the reference experiences that built up your confidence, or were there other tactics and strategies that you used?
100% there are. So I think the biggest issue that people have isn't confidence externally. And that's what a lot of people think of. When they walk around, oh, do I walk with my shoulders back? That's not real confidence. Real confidence is the internal and belief that I say I'm going to do something and I do it. That's real confidence. So the way I built it up from the beginning is I would set targets, and not a target of like, oh, I want to hit this. A target of like, I will not sleep until this is done. And the target was around the inputs. And I started it smaller and then gradually I built it up. So at the beginning, it could be like when I was running that first business, I'm going to do 100 outreach messages today, no matter what. I'm going to watch 2 hours worth of business content, no matter what. I'm going to outreach to 15 people in the space that are more successful than me, no matter what. And those were non-negotiables. I will not fall asleep until this is done. And slowly, gradually, whenever you say, I am going to do this, and you get it done, you're telling yourself, say I'm going to do this, and I get it done. If you say you're going to do 100 push-ups when you wake up, you damn better sure do those 100 push-ups. Because if not, you're telling yourself, I say I do this, and I don't do it. And that's a very dangerous thing. Because then whenever you have those days where shit gets hard, and it's tough, which is going to happen, you wake up, you run a business, you lost your best customer, your best employee, everything's going to shit, you just got another chargeback. On that day, when everything is terrible, are you the guy who says he's going to get it done and he gets it done? Or are you the guy who feels terrible and he doesn't do it because of that?
Yeah. And I hear that. And I hear that all the time with coworkers. I hear that with setters and closers. They always have something external to blame. And I don't believe it's because they see themselves as being a victim. I think it's just a habit that they've built, and it's very hard to break out of it. And they have not been taught how to break out of it, and they have not even really tried. And even when they get encouragement from other people, it's like the words just hit them like a brick wall. Doesn't really do anything.
And even if they do feel something, it goes back to what I was saying earlier. It's not a standard that they just set. They just got motivation. They just feel good for 10 minutes, and then it wears off, and they're right back to the same old stuff.
Do you think other people are required to help you raise your standards, or can you just simply do it on your own on a daily basis with your own mind?
You can absolutely do it yourself. I think the beautiful thing about having people around you, which it does help, you don't need it to set a standard, is it shows you what you're truly capable of.
Yeah.
Josh, for example, my original mentor, I learned a lot of my mindset from him. It wasn't because I was building the discipline from him, and it wasn't because I was fixing my mindset with what he was telling me or his advice. It was because I saw this guy who, whenever we were near an event and no tickets were sold, and the company came to us and they were like, hey guys, we need to fill up this event with 2 weeks of prior notice, then I could see him go in, work 20 hours, sleep 2 hours a day for 3 or 4 days straight, if need be, if that's what was required to get it done. And I could see this is what I'm truly capable of. This is what a human can do. That's why now, the past 2 days for the launch, I've slept 2, 3, 4 hours a day, because now I know I'm capable of it, because I've seen other people do it. I had times going back to that same concept of doing hard things just to build the mental toughness, even if people say it's not productive. People are like, oh, doing a cold plunge, it doesn't make you more money. Stupidest thing I've ever heard. Yeah, it doesn't make you more money. It makes you more mentally strong. That's the point of it. It's not that you're in the cold plunge with dollar bills floating around you. Like, that's not the point. It's because it makes you do something that you don't want to do. That's what it does. So like, for
So
example, there'd be days at seventh level, I did this to challenge myself. I went 48 hours straight on just calls. I was working US hours and I switched time zones and I switched to Australian leads. And then the next
yeah,
day, right back to US hours, 48 hours straight of just calls and working, pumping a shit ton of caffeine and stuff, but just to know that I was capable of it. That broke a barrier for me. That broke a mental belief of, oh, if I have less than 5 hours of sleep, I can't function. That broke that immediately. If I could do 48 hours straight of calls, I could sleep 1 hour. I'm still getting it done. I don't care. So it comes back to that same principle of the pain, using other people as a way to see what's possible, but not necessarily to build your own discipline. Because if you rely on other people to build your discipline, as soon as that person's gone, you're screwed.
yeah,
Can't have that.
yeah. Some people actually, after they leave the military, they have incredible difficulty with discipline. They do have habits, but pushing themselves further is difficult because they've always been around people that push them. So
I
yeah,
never heard
having
that.
that inner drive,
That makes
having
perfect
an inner
sense.
drive.
It's true. I've never heard
Yeah.
that, but I believe it.
So, what are you doing now? What's this new business you have?
Yeah. So after I got out of the whole seventh level and all that, like I realized, like realistically, as a 17-year-old, I started realizing like you really don't need money. Like there's nothing else. Like you get to a certain point after you get past probably 30 grand a month, 40 grand a month, there's nothing really that making more money will buy. Unless you
Yeah.
get to like 500 grand a month and you start like getting private jets and other stuff like that. Like there's really nothing else that you can really get.
Yeah.
Like, so I started realizing it was like, okay, so what's my actual purpose? Like what's my mission? What's going to push me? What's a mission I can get behind and drive? And for me, that became making sales education available to the youth for free.
Yeah.
And I hit home because me, when I was 16 years old, I spent $55,000-$60,000 in that year on coaching, consulting, mentoring. And I realized for most 16-year-olds, whether it's because they don't have the risk tolerance or the intelligence or the work ethic or whatever it is to be able to make that money, they're just not going to do it. They're just not going to spend that kind of money to learn the skill sets required to be that successful at a young age. And so I went on that mission of like, how can I give people this possibility, this vehicle of becoming successful and achieving everything they've ever wanted without having to spend 60 grand? And that became that mission. And so after I had the mission in place, it was like, this is something that truly drives me. I can get behind this. I can work 16 hours a day for this mission, even if it doesn't make me any money. And so then I had to think, how can I build a business on the back end of this mission? I don't believe in building a business and then creating a mission statement with it. I believe in creating the mission statement and then building a business afterwards. Because if not, you're just putting the mission statement just for fun, like just because it sounds cool. And so after I had that mission, I really had to sit down for like a couple of days. And it was like, how can we build a business off the back end of it? And so what we ended up doing is now going to the consulting space. And so the way we do our service delivery, I don't believe in managers who are like, do this, do this, do that, say this on the call, say this, do this many dials. But they haven't done a single dial or taken a single sales call in the past 30 days. I don't believe it. So the way me and Yash operate, we'll go into our business, we'll sell the offer ourselves, we'll get the conversion rate up to par with the right cash collection, show rate, and everything else. We'll document all the SOPs that we require to get to that point, and then we'll recruit, manage, and train a team afterwards. And we'll get a rev share on the entire business. And so the reason that that fulfills our mission is because whenever we need these recruits, now we have all these people, all these trained reps who join the free group, right? Who've got in training, who've filled out an application page, who we've spoken with one-on-one for a 15-minute call. We've been able to vet them, how much cash they've collected on other accounts, et cetera. And now we have this resource, which is trained sales reps who are hungry and want to get after it. Yeah. And then we're able to place them onto those accounts. And then that's how we're able to make money on the back end of that while still fulfilling that mission of making sales education available to everybody.
And do you have a type of screening process for people that come in? Because if it's free, a lot of people are going to drop in. So what does that screening process look like?
So we give everything away for free on the front end. So we give sales call recordings, one-on-one coaching calls, everything. And then we have a $97 a month group, which just has more group calls and it has more sales call recordings, just more of the stuff that's in the free, right? Okay. And so the way that it works is once they get to the $97 a month, then they can book a direct one-on-one call with me and Yash, a 15-minute call. Right? We'll vet them. They have to go through an application page as well. So they have to fill out questions, et cetera. And then the process is before getting to the call with me and Yash, that one-on-one call, first they have to schedule a call with our assistant, Elle. So she lives in London and she's full-time, et cetera. And so she gets to vet them, 15-minute call with them. And then after they go through her, she asks them very specific questions that we've trained her on. And then they get to book a 15-minute call with me and Yash. And then we'll be able to vet them even further right there. And then we'll make them send us a sales call. We'll review it. We'll figure out how many hours they're willing to work. And then from there, we're able to get them on the offer with us. Full vetting process.
Yeah. And honestly, I think that's what every sales school should do. They should really vet the people, because when you bring lazy people in or people that give up too quick, they're just not going to make it. And then they'll leave a bad review.
I'm not going to speak anybody bad in the industry, but like, I've heard that 1,000 times. People will be like, oh, I'm going to place 5 reps on your account. They place the 5 reps. Those people have never sold. They've sold an ROI offer in the past, how to grow a business. Now they're trying to get on a fitness offer, which is an emotional based sale, completely different. They have no idea what they're doing. They underperform. Then they get lazy. They don't want to work hard because they're not seeing numbers for it. And then they just end up quitting, and that person's just left high and dry with nothing. Yeah.
Wow. So much information, but this is great. So when it comes to your sales methodology, what influences do you have? And also, what changes have you made to kind of make it your own?
I've taken it from a lot of people. So like I learned obviously from Jeremy Miner's NAPQ methodology. I learned from like Grant Cardone, Jordan Belfort, all of them. I don't believe there's a bad methodology. Like I think there's good to take from everything. Grant Cardone, great charisma. Jordan Belfort, great efficiency. Jeremy Miner, great with the emotion, right? And then I did a lot of research into like NLP, and I've learned a lot of psychology. I've read a lot of studies. I've gone to a lot of events about it, right? I bought courses on NLP, psychology, all that stuff. And so understanding like identity shifts, I think was key for me. So I took all those pieces from everybody else. And then the piece that I was able to kind of add and make my own was how to shift people's identity, who they are on a call, right? Because if you're able to transform them as a person, I'll give you an example. There's a kid, I coached him one-on-one. His name's Russell Sage. When he was doing like $1,000 a month, he was 16 years old. He DM'd me on Instagram. I just called him on Instagram and I objectioned him for 3.5 hours. And then I closed him on the spot. He has never given a single objection to anybody since that point. Never. In fact, he probably needs to give more objections because he's also gotten scammed because of it. But he hasn't given a single objection. Last month, he did $170,000 and he's 17. Not in cash collected as a sales rep, in his business, like revenue. It's his own business.
Wow.
And so again, transformative sales. I shifted his identity on that first call to where he never gave another objection ever again from that point.
And what do you think are the biggest difficulties that people face when they first come in, new sales reps?
They come in with the wrong expectation, I think is the biggest one. They prioritize making cash and making an income over a career and actually developing themselves as a person. Because if you have 2 sales reps and one of them is focused on cash, the other one's focused on, for example, building mental toughness, the one focused on cash, he's going to go like this, and then it's just going to go like that. The one focused on building mental toughness and other skill sets is going to go like this, and then going to go like that. Completely different curve. So I think that's the biggest mistake people make. They come in with the wrong expectation of, oh, I'm going to be a 10K a month high ticket closer and I'm going to travel the world and it's going to be beautiful. Do you think I traveled the world when I was working 18 hours a day, 7 days a week for months on end without any friends?
Hell no. I don't think you had time.
Yeah, I don't think I had much time to be taking flights to Bali and wherever the hell else. Right? Like that, people come in with the wrong expectation and that's why they don't grow. If you come on focusing on how do I build mental toughness? How do I build myself as a man, as a person? You're going to grow a lot further in the long run. That's the biggest issue. They come on with the wrong expectation and then the wrong formula. They take people's scripts that are 10 pages long, trying to learn this, trying to memorize every single word on a 10-page script, rather than what we believe in, what Yash and I created, is what we call the impact formula. 4 stages, simplest thing ever. The entire call discovery should take 15 to 20 minutes, and then you pitch, and you should be done with the call by minute 40. Simplest thing in the world. Efficiency and the right outcome. That's what you need in mind.
And you have to have the right mindset for that too, because that's going to improve your performance.
1,000%. That's the right outcome. The outcome, the mindset is shaped by the outcome you're after. If you're after short-term cash, that's your mindset. If you're after building mental toughness and how to build yourself as a human being, that's your mindset. That'll shape everything. That'll shape the results you get.
So you just spoke about the biggest problems that sales professionals face. What about business owners? Because you're doing consulting right now. What difficulties do they have?
I think there's a principle I really, really like, and it's the first step to being a good business owner is just being a good human being. There is so many businesses I've seen fall apart because the owner or a manager or a founder or the CEO, whatever, They prioritize the cash rather than how they make people feel. Every person, and this is something I have to constantly remind myself of as well, every person you speak to, even if they're underperforming and you're having to push them, should come out of the conversation being like, damn, he's a great person. I feel much better. Let's get to work. Let's do this. They shouldn't come out of a conversation being like, oh, I feel forced to work hard. I feel like I have to do this, but I don't want to. That's not the feeling you should leave on people. So I think the biggest issue people have, and again, this isn't for 0K a month businesses trying to get to 10K a month. This is people already doing a couple $100,000 a month, trying to get to millions a month. They struggle with management and having the right people. And the reason they can't have the right people is because they don't attract them and they don't keep them because they themselves are the wrong kind of person.
They don't know how to choose them because they don't know what they look like.
Exactly. That's number one. And even if they do choose them, and it's a blind squirrel finding a lucky nut, even if they do choose them, then they can't retain them. They can't keep them because they're the wrong kind of person. Like my team, for example, right now, I have Yosh, my business partner. I have Austin Crispel, that guy I was speaking about earlier, who was one of my mentors, who has built all these 9-figure, 8-figure companies from scratch through organic content. I have a guy named Peter Liu. He was a head copywriter and CMO for Dan Lok. Do you remember Dan Lok? Like back in the day?
Dan Lok,
Exactly. Millions a month. He was like the founder, basically, of the entire high ticket space. Peter Liu was the head copywriter and CMO for him. He was the CMO and head copywriter for Jeremy Miner as well. And he's worked on a ton of other accounts that also he has NDAs for, so he can't speak about. But like, I have an A+ team. I have an S team, a killer team. And we're able to retain each other because we all know the vision we want to build. We all have the same mindset around it. We're all aligned. We're all the right kinds of people to work together. Versus if I was somebody who was always like, oh, you do this, you do that. Like, we need to do this. We need to get that done. Rather than having faith in a team and being able to be like, okay, guys, I know you know what the hell you're doing. That's why you're on the team. Get it done. I'm going to get my shit done and we're going to work. We're going to build this thing. That's how you get great.
For those business owners that have a tremendous amount of difficulty because of what you expressed, what would you recommend for them to actually develop themselves? What skill sets should they learn?
That's a great question. I think a lot of business owners, they really cheap out on learning skill sets around like leadership and management and more intangibles. I think they'll put a lot of money into training around like sales and marketing and operations and finance and all this other stuff. They'll invest heavily into things that have a very direct return. Like, okay, I get better at sales. We go from a 15% conversion rate to 20% conversion rate. But they don't really invest and focus on intangibles, leadership, management. Yeah, there might not be a very direct correlation of like, oh, we're going to get my leadership from a 20 to a 22. Like that doesn't exist. But that's what allows you to retain people in the long run and build a big business. And so I think focusing on those skill sets that are very intangible and not only putting money, but also time and commitment into them, I think naturally you'll just get better at them. I think that's a really good place to start.
And I think there's so many different forms of leadership that have been taught over, my God, decades. I mean, you have leadership in the military is going to be completely different than leadership in sales. In some circumstances, it may be the same. But what type of leadership do you prefer?
That's a great question. I like that you said prefer, because I don't think there's one best way to do it.
Yeah.
My preference, I'm a big believer in like unleashing people's potential. So if you think about business more holistically, there's some businesses that focus on getting everybody to be a little bit better, but there's no like superstar S players. It's just trying to get the average and the bottom performers to be a little bit better. And then there's other businesses that focus on how can I take my good performers, my top performers, and make them superstars, make them fantastic. That's the one that I prefer. And if you analyze it from a business perspective, if you look at the ones that are like make the worst a little bit better, like raise the average a little bit, typically that'll be like they'll have higher base, they'll have lower commissions, they'll have lower bonuses, and it's more around certainty, around comfort, around standardization.
Stability.
Those other businesses, exactly. The other businesses, they'll at least have options of like lowering your base or having zero base and much higher commissions or much higher bonus structures, because like it's focused on unleashing potential. And I think those businesses, honestly, the reason I prefer it is because I believe in the long run, they will always do better, because those superstar performers, those S players, they eventually become the sales leaders that train everybody else underneath them. They become the drivers. And so I think in the long run, that business will do better anyways. That's my preference.
What do you recommend for people that are just starting out in sales and have a really difficult time? What words of advice would you have for them?
Struggling how?
Oh man, they feel anxiety all the time. They can't take rejection. They feel lethargic, like they're not going to make it. They don't have that confidence in themselves. They constantly seek external validation. The list goes on.
I think all of that comes from a lack of true self confidence and internal confidence. So I think number one, going back to what I was saying earlier, you have to set targets of like, I'm going to hit this and I will not sleep. It will get done. And start it smaller. Like it's kind of like when people, they're like, oh, they haven't worked out in a year. And all of a sudden they go, oh, I'm going to work out 7 days a week, 2 hours a day. And then they go for 3 days and then they quit. Like that doesn't work. You can't set massive targets of, oh, I'm going to do 400 hours a day for every single day of my first week, because then you're going to quit and you're going to feel bad about yourself. And again, you're going to lower your self-confidence. So set achievable targets. It could be 100 hours a day, for example, if you're an outbound rep. If you're a sales rep, like a closer, it could be, I'm going to take a minimum of 8 sales calls and I'm going to also do $50 on top of that. I think dialing, even if you're a closer, is an extremely important thing, right? So like, go ahead.
Yeah, why do you think that? Because I always say that's extremely important, but a lot of people think they don't need to. Why do you think that's important?
It keeps you sharp. Like setting is a lot harder than closing. Like people who think closing is harder than setting, that's ridiculous. It's stupid. Yosh, for example, when he's making 120K a month in straight commissions, he was still doing 2 hours of outbound hours every single day.
Yeah.
Because it develops your skill set a lot faster than taking a closing call. And the reason why is because you can take them through, for example, we call it the intent stage and logical certainty stage on an outbound call in 5 minutes, and you get very, very quick feedback. They're like, oh, I don't want to talk to you. Hang up. That's quick feedback. Yeah. The other person taking closing calls, he doesn't get the feedback until an hour later when the person told him to F off and he doesn't want to pay him. And so naturally, if one guy's getting feedback every 5 minutes, going through a lot more repetitions, another guy's getting feedback every hour, going through a lot less repetitions, this person's always going to learn faster than the other person. So if you're a closer and you're not doing outbound dials and you're not getting after it and you're not asking for referrals and doing upsells and doing everything else to maximize your income and maximize the leads, you're lazy. There's nothing else I can say. You are lazy. You do not want it bad enough. You have to be doing the outbound dials. You have to be doing the manual work, the labor intensive work. That's what makes you great. That's what makes you better than everybody else. So that's why I believe that's very important. And most closers don't do that. And that's why they fall into the trap of just being a high ticket closer. I'm just going to sit in front of my computer with my calendar open and click on my Zoom link whenever I have a call on my calendar. Like it's bullshit. Doesn't work.
So lazy.
But it's the reality. That's what most people do. That's most of their work ethic, their life. That's what they do. It's sad.
No, I know. You get offers where the setters are contacting the closers, asking them, how did the call go? Are you going to follow up with them? Because most of the time they aren't. They just want to go on to the first prospect that might have, might be a bit warmer, right?
If a setter has to ask, are you going to follow up with this person? They're asking the wrong question. You already done messed up. You're already in the trenches. You gotta be the one getting after it and letting the setter know. Yeah. This was a bad set because of X and Y and Z. This was a good set because of X and Y and Z. This person, you could have financially qualified a little bit better. Right now, I have lower bookings. Set anybody for me because I just need to take calls and get repetitions. That's another thing. Besides just the outbound dialing, closers will be like, oh, if they don't have 10 grand in their bank account and they want to invest right now and they know everything about this person, don't set them. If you don't have calls on your calendar, why does it matter if the person has $500 in their bank account? How do you get better at sales? How do you make sales? By talking to people. You speak to people. That's how you make sales. That was, for example, one issue at 7th level that Yosh and I had to fix. A lot of closers would go in being like, oh, I got this bad set. He only had $300 in his bank account. Why did you set it? Mate, because you have 4 calls on your calendar. You don't want to do outbound dials. You don't want to DM set. You don't want to do anything. So they might as well set as many people as they can. So you're at least talking to somebody. It's better than nothing.
Yeah. And sometimes you have to be very direct with people.
Agreed.
Now, how do you go about that? Because there are some people you have to be very direct with. You do have to cross their boundaries to let them know, hey, you're not doing your job properly. But at the same time, you don't want to come across as being too rude or anything. So how do you deal with situations like that with reps?
I believe in being very direct no matter what. So that's number one. Number two, there's the approach of like empowering somebody where like if somebody's very egotistical in a sense, like a sales rep which let's be honest about it, a lot of them are. But if you have somebody who's extremely egotistical, they don't want to take feedback, you can't just try and empower them. Like, oh, you're going to be so great because like they already think they're greater than they actually are. So like that's never going to work. There's the other kind of personality type where they have more of an inferior complex, where they always believe they're messing up and like, oh, I can't do this, blah, blah, blah. Those people need to be empowered, right?
Yeah.
So for those people, it's like, you have to very constructively be like, this is the issue, X and Y and Z, very direct, very clear. I know you're better than this. I know you are great. I know you have a lot of potential. You have the right thought process. You're doing things right. This is just a few things that are lacking. Fix this and you're going to be even better. That's how you empower those people. The other people who are very egotistical, very like, oh, okay, I'm not going to take, like, those people, you have to be a lot more direct and you have to kind of break them down in a sense, like just straight up.
Yeah. It's you're doing them a favor by doing that. Exactly. And they're probably going to thank you in the long run too.
Exactly. That's sales calls as well. This is just like influence and persuasion as a whole. That's how you have to do it. People will come on, like, I was watching a video, for example, I'm going to do a reaction video to it where it's like another 18, 19-year-old kid or whatever, and he's saying the sales call. And the prospect, she was like, oh, you look 15. And you started laughing. And I was like, why would you ever start laughing in that situation when somebody says something like that? You're immediately lowering your status. She immediately has zero respect for you. You're not going to close the sale. If somebody gets on a call, for example, and they're an A-type and they're like, oh, well, I just want to make more money. I just want to grow the business. And you're like, well, I guess, like, what do you feel like you need help with, like, in specific, like, in order to grow the business, make more sales, help more people, all that jazz? Oh, well, I just want to make more money. I don't really know. If you just move on to the next question, that person's going to have zero respect for you throughout the entire call because you didn't hold them accountable. They just think of you as everybody else. You're setting the frame in their mind of, I don't have to give good answers, and he will move on. And if they believe they don't have to give good answers, when you get into objection handling, and now you're trying to push them and ask them very specific questions about consequences and impacts and everything else, they're not going to give you an answer because you already told them they don't have to. But if when somebody's like, oh, well, I just want to make more money, you're like, well, yeah, I mean, people don't typically come to us to make less money. That's for sure. They typically come to us to make what? Well, more money. Exactly. So I guess, like, what do you feel like you need in specific, like, in order to make more money, like help more people, all that jazz? You just show them right there, you can't BS me. I will hold you accountable. I know what you're doing. So when you set that frame the entire call, you go into objection handling, and now that person, you can ask them very personal questions and you can be very direct with them because they actually respect you. The exact same thing with managing. If somebody does a bad job and you're like, oh, it's okay, you're going to do better, blah, 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 you're teaching them, I do a bad job and it's okay. I get away with it.
Yeah.
Can't let that happen.
Yeah.
Psychology 101.
That's right. Yeah. And people that are high achievers tend to accept feedback better, I think. 1,000%. People that become exceptional tend to accept feedback better because that's how they became exceptional, is they took feedback from other people.
With one caveat. They accept feedback a lot better, but they accept less feedback. And the reason why, and this is a massive thing I've noticed, me being 17 in 7th level, outperforming everybody else, I would get onto like a training call, for example, or whatever, or like this was before I started training the team and managing the team and recruiting the team, et cetera. Before that point, like I would have people that were 40 years old who have been in sales for 20 years, who I was quadrupling their cash collection. And they'd be like, oh, I think you could have done this a little bit differently. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, it doesn't make any sense. But it's because they have an ego and they feel like by giving me advice, they feel better than me somehow, even though the numbers don't back.
Oh, so you must have gone through a lot of that at 7th level and also on calls when you're speaking to older men and women that see you as being this young guy. How did you manage? How did you get them to take you seriously right off the bat when you dealt with that?
I just beat all of them. That's like, there's no other way around it. You just have to, you have to, there's a quote. What was it? Be so successful that people can't forget you. Something like that. I don't know. I forget what it was, but the idea of it is like, for example, there was a guy and we were on a training call. This was before I officially started training the team. Right. And Yosh was the one training the team at that point. And a guy asked a question and I gave him an answer. It was the answer of like what I was doing on my calls, etc. And he completely ignores me. He's like, Yosh, what do you think? And I wrote it down that day. I remember his name. I remember that moment. It's ingrained in my mind. 30 days later, when I 6 or 7x'd his cash collection, something like that.
Yeah.
And I got a DM from him. Dude, like, what are you doing? Like, how are you doing? Like putting up these numbers? Like, can you help me? Can we hop on a call? It's because before, okay, don't get me wrong, I was still 3xing his cash collection, but it wasn't like such a big gap that it was like he has to be like cheating or like hacking or something. Like it wasn't
Yeah.
like that level. But then once you get to that point, just be so successful that you just shut people up. And then
I love that.
I need help.
Just
I need to
show
get
me numbers, right? Because they
exactly.
don't lie.
Same thing with like what's it called with like if you're in sales, like you're selling to somebody and you're way younger, so you don't have the respect. Number
Yeah.
one, getting places like this is the new penthouse I got in Houston. Great background. If anybody gets on a call with me, it doesn't matter how old they are, they immediately respect me because it's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, clearly you have some level of respect. Number one. Number two, the way you speak, your communication ability tells anybody anything about your level of success and who you are as a person. So mastering communication, it's a very worthy thing to do. And so like people get on a call, they see how I communicate, they see my background. They've probably heard things about me from other people or from a pre-call indoctrination process. If I'm selling for an offer, I'm going to make sure they know things about me before they get on the call. So they get on already with a level of respect. In fact, me being 17, that increases the respect because it's like, damn, this kid's making 5 times more than what I'm making. And he's 17 years old and I'm 60.
Yeah.
So like if anything, it helps you. You just need to know how to leverage it the right way.
Honestly, I find it incredibly inspiring. And I love to know that there's a guy like you that is inspiring other young sales professionals as well, because I think that a lot of young men out there that are starting in this industry, they might feel like they don't know who to look up to. And they're searching for someone to look up to. And I think that's natural and I think it's great. And the fact that you're there to inspire them and help them along the way, man, I really think that's awesome, man.
I love that. I appreciate
I really
that.
think that's cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it's been about an hour. We're going to be wrapping up soon. Is there anything that you would like to talk about specifically? What are some things that you want to mention before we wrap up?
I think the biggest message I could give to anybody trying to be successful in sales, business, really anything, is think, and everybody says it, but like it's actually true. Think long term. Think of what's going to build you. It's the saying of like people underestimate what they can do in a year, but they overestimate what they can do in a year. They underestimate what they can do in 20. If you have more work ethic and you work 18 hours a day, then the saying is more like people overestimate what they can do in a week, but they underestimate what they can do in a month. That's more like if you truly put your mind to something and actually commit to it and prioritize the right things, literally for 30 days, for 60 days, for 90 days, you will see results. It does not take that long. People think it takes a year or 20 years. I've been in business in total for 15 months. 3 months after starting was when I had that $36,000 a month. 3 months after starting. Like if you truly put your mind to something and you prioritize the right things, you can succeed faster than anybody imagines.
Yeah.
Like truly, I never thought, not in a million years, that I would be sitting here where I am today with what I have now, with the people that I'm around and the happiness that I have 15 months after starting. Never would have even thought of the idea.
Yeah.
Most of my classmates right now, back then, are, what time is it? 12:20 p.m. They're about to go to lunch right now. Lunch break after math class or whatever.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy what you can truly do if you put your mind or something and have the right priorities. So that's the biggest thing I would tell anybody is like, really focus on the long term. And it doesn't have to be 20 years. It could literally be 6 months and actually fully commit to something. It's going to be hard. It's going to be tough. And that's why you're doing it. That is why it's worth doing, because it's hard. Anything worth doing is going to be hard. That's just reality.
Exactly. And for anyone watching this right now, I really want to say to you, Andres is proof that you can do it as well. At whatever age you're at, that you can succeed as well, that you can put in the hard work, you can be consistent, you can find mentors, and you can get the same type of success. My own sales mentor did the exact same thing, worked 18 hours a day, 7 days a week for a very long period of time. I think he hit 100K per month on one offer. Just unbelievable. And and I'll probably have him on again soon. But it was so great to have you on, Andres. This was a very inspirational podcast, not just for me, but for everyone watching. And I really appreciate you coming on. We'll wrap it up. I want to have you on again sometime soon. Once you're making a million a month, I'll give you a ring. You know,
100%.
I'll be making $500,000. And I'd be like, hey man, I'm almost there. I'm almost catching up to you, buddy. Okay.
Yep. I appreciate you,
man.
Hopefully my 3 hour of sleep thoughts were hopefully helpful in some way to somebody out there.
All right, man. So thanks so much for coming on. Just wave goodbye to the audience. See you guys later. Love that you
Thanks
came
for
on to
having me.
watch.
Easy. Perfect.